Terrific. Well, hello, everyone. Tom Kane here with the Center for Applied AI at UMBC Training Centers. Once again, thank you again for joining us today in our AI Lunchbox series. We're glad you've decided to spend 30 minutes or so with us. So today's going to be an exciting presentation with Dhruv Ratra on basically data analysis and AI. So without further ado, take it away, Dhruv.
Thank you, Tom. Welcome, everyone. I'll be talking about data analysis. I'll be talking about AI, but primarily in this session, just talking more about generative AI and the use of generative AI in data analysis. So we'll just talk a little bit about kind of moving from data to intelligence and why the data analysis is important. But I think you all know that. Talk a little bit about some of the tools that are out there and how we'd use Gen AI for data analysis. We'll be focusing on that today, and we'll be talking about using Gen AI for data visualization a week from today. Then I'll open it up for some Q&A. I won't be talking today about using Copilot for Microsoft 365. That's going to be yet another lunch and learn. So those are the topics we're going to cover. By the way, there are micro sessions being offered by UMBC TC and in particular the Center for Applied AI. We'll be kind of going over in a 2-hour session with using ChatGPT for data analysis. And this is going to be more of a deep dive. If you look at the link over here, which I've opened up, umbctraining.com courses ChatGPT for data analysis. There's some dates and times, 2-hour sessions during the day or in the evening. And I will customize them to meet your requests as long as they're not too complicated and can be handled in a 2-hour session. So feel free to take a look at the website and sign up. And there's a discount for signing up early. Okay. So why is data analysis important? And I think, very simply, organizations have a lot of data, and not just the volume, but also the speed at which data is being generated and different types of data that's being generated, whether spreadsheets or printed handouts or emails or transactional data with IoT devices now spewing out data at rates faster than ever before, and trying to kind of not just cleanse and standardize the data, but extract some intelligence, some useful business intelligence out of it. And then tied to that is kind of being able to visualize this intelligence and have it be updatable and refreshable. So have a system that continuously updates as new data comes in, and you can get your summaries and your KPIs. So that's what data analysis is all about. And we will be looking at some AI tools like ChatGPT's advanced data analysis. Previously, it was called Code Interpreter. I'll talk a little bit about Excel. Excel already, prior to this explosion of Gen AI, Excel already had AI capabilities built in. A lot of people are not aware of that. But I'll talk in this session more about some of the add-ins, which are Gen AI specific to Excel. Like I mentioned earlier, the Copilot for Microsoft 365 and in particular for Microsoft Excel, that'll be another lunch and learn. And time permitting, I'll go over some custom GPTs around data analysis. There are other tools there like Julius.ai, which you can choose the underlying engine, whether you want to use GPT-4 or Claude 3, which was just released like a week ago. There's Google Looker. There are a lot of other tools as well. Okay, just folks know ChatGPT. Everyone has heard of ChatGPT, but it's basically a large language model, and it's based on the transformer architecture. And the transformer architecture is something relatively new. It's only 7 years old. I mean, the theory has been around for a while, but it's basically back in 2017, Google had their scientists had published a paper called "Attention is All You Need." If you Google that, you'll see that's kind of the beginning of the transformer kind of neural network architecture, which is now powering all these LLMs. And the key thing about these LLMs is they go out and they scan a lot of information on the internet, public information, private information. Sometimes, you know, there are issues around where they're getting the data from, but it essentially allows it to understand patterns and relationships and information. And in particular, it has a probabilistic model that allows it to predict the next word in a sequence or the next pixel in an image, or, you know, whatever. It's a prediction algorithm that you know, helps it kind of respond to user prompts and questions. The reason I'm mentioning this is, you know, you run the same thing twice, you are not guaranteed, and in fact almost never going to get the same response for even the same question or the same prompt, right? Because it's probabilistic, and you know, it's not always going to be complete or correct. So you have to keep in mind, you know, using these Gen AI tools, the chatbots, you're going to get 90% of your solution in 5-10% of the time and effort that you put in, right? But you always have to continuously kind of look, and especially when you're looking at data analysis, do not take anything for granted. You know, get it to help you, but then you, at the end of the day, are going to have to validate the results that it provides. Just real quick, this ChatGPT 3.5 and 4, their releases, one came out, you know, June 2020. So that was about 3 years after Google published its transformer architecture, and GPT-4 came out now it's a year ago, and to date nothing really has beaten GPT-4. You know, Google and Anthropic have been talking about it, but no one really has kind of hands down beaten GPT-4. And it's, so it is kind of the state of the art tool at the moment. And for all the stuff that I'm going to be doing, I'll be using the Plus subscription plan. So I'll be using the GPT-4 and I'll be using the Plus subscription plan for the data analysis that we're going to see. Just real quick, if you want to try all of this at home or in your spare time, there are a lot of data sources out there. Kaggle is kind of one of the kind of main data sources where you can get a lot of you know, data sets that you can download and then upload into ChatGPT or into Excel. UC Irvine has a huge machine learning repository. Google actually has a search specific to open source data sets. So if you look at the Google dataset search, you can start looking for datasets. GitHub has datasets, data.gov, EU, World Bank, NASA, a lot of datasets available. And the good news is ChatGPT and a lot of the other platforms out there will handle many different types of data: text, Office, PDF, Excel, structured data, XML, JSON, audio, video. So there's a lot of you know, capabilities for handling of the data that you download from the sources. Okay, I am going to be focusing for today on a data set of apples that I got from the site here. You can click look at apple quality under Kaggle. There are you know, 7 or 8 different attributes, and there are some use cases that they present here, but essentially there are about 4,000 records. There are some kind of what would be considered feature attributes or input attributes, and there's kind of a label which is the quality of the apple that has been kind of decided whether it's good or bad. So if you open it up in Excel, you'll see something like this. So you'll see 4,000 records here, and you have size, weight, sweetness. Let me just do something real quick here. So you have your kind of your input attributes here: size, weight, sweetness, crunchiness, juiciness, and then you have something called quality, which is good or bad. And so what I have actually done to make this talk a little bit more exciting is I've broken a few records in here. I want to show you kind of how you can use ChatGPT to identify bad records and then use it to then fix those bad records just by using, English or by using language, right? If you're using Spanish or Italian or French or German. So you can see that record 5 is broken and record 10 is broken, some missing values. And here I used a different delimiter, semicolon instead of comma. And that's the data set we're going to work with. Okay. So let's now jump into ChatGPT. And for that, let me pull up. So here's my GPT-4 interface here. I'm going to open up a new session. Let me just refresh this. Sometimes I have to refresh it because I have a lot of things going on. And I'm just going to upload the file, my broken file, into ChatGPT here. And for speed, I'm just going to copy and paste my prompts here. So I'm going to say, can you interpret the data set and let me know what you find out? So all I've done is I've taken this comma separated data set where I've actually intentionally broken a couple of records, and I'm uploading it into my GPT-4 interface here and putting in a prompt. So you'll notice a few things. It is actually going to analyze the stuff. And it's actually going to be using behind the scenes, it's going to be doing using Python. You don't need to know anything about Python, but it will give you the option to look at the code. But before we get to that, I've uploaded a data set and I've asked it to interpret, and it's right away spat out kind of information about the various attributes of the data set. It's giving me some information. It's done some kind of statistical analysis, maybe some descriptive stats behind the scenes. And you can see that it's giving, it's now going to give me its interpretation of the attributes that it's finding in the data set. So, and you can run this multiple times and you'll get different interpretive results, right? Here it's talking about the quality distribution, it's talking about the statistical summary, but you can start seeing, it's giving you kind of a lot of insight into a data set that you may never have seen before. And these little prompts here allow you to view the analysis and allow you to view the underlying Python code. And you can start seeing, and if you've played with Python, Pandas is a very familiar library. It allows you to look at stuff as data frames. So it's reading the file and it's kind of getting some of the first few records of the data set. Similarly, if you go down here, you can look at, there's more information about the distribution and summary of that data. So it's doing some very basic data analysis, and it's outputting what it thinks its interpretation of the data set. And like I said, different iterations will give you different interpretations. But you can always see the Python code. You can always take that Python code and run it in your Python environment, and you can kind of explore it some more. So I'm going to now copy this next thing, which is let me get some insight into what records. So I'm going to, which records in the uploaded file data set require cleaning or fixing? Can you list their corresponding IDs? So I'm asking it, are there any bad records in this file, right? Very traditional kind of way of kind of performing your data analysis, right? You look at the data, you do some frequency distributions, you get some summary information, you'll try to understand, is there any bad data in here, right? You want to be aware of the bad data ahead of time. And it may be a data set that you've never, ever seen before. And right here, look at this. The records required cleaning or fixing are 5 and 10. Seems to contain multiple values and has missing values, right? It's already flagged the two records that I intentionally had broken. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say, can you fix these 2 records and give me the cleaned data set now in CSV format. Let's see if it handles that. So I'm asking it now to fix the records for me and then allow me to download the fixed file because I want to keep a record of that. And if I have 100 broken records, this is a great tool to kind of en masse fix all the broken records in the file in your data set. Let's wait for it to okay, let's see what it says. And we'll give you a lot of options, and you can even say how you want to fix stuff. In this case, it went ahead and fixed it, and I can download this, and it downloads the data set for me. I won't explore that right now, but I'll just continue in the interest of time, and now do the next step in an analysis, data analysis, which is kind of give me some descriptive stats of this clean data set. So very traditional, look at the data, interpret the data, identify broken records, fix the broken records. Look at it here. It's already, it's identifying, suggests a mix up in the analysis approach. This is, okay. So ChatGPT sometimes will confuse itself and it will think it was doing something in a certain way. There's history in kind of the session, and it'll think it's kind of doing an analysis in a certain way, and then it'll kind of self-correct. The good news is when it finds kind of something in the way that it was doing previously that may not be appropriate, it will try different iterations. It'll try different things for you. If something doesn't work, sometimes you'll see there's an error, and then it'll recover from that error and say, okay, let me try a different way. In this case, you can see the descriptive stats. It's already giving me counts, means, medians. In this case, standard deviations, the quartiles. So 50% quartile is your median. It's giving all that information. And again, you can look at the analysis. You can look at the analysis here, and you can get kind of all that descriptive information here. When we go to the data visualization next week, when we talk about data visualization, I'll talk to you about histograms and frequency distributions, kind of visual aspects of data analysis. Okay, so we looked at descriptive stats, and now kind of I'll start ending the kind of the ChatGPT here by kind of going to something more advanced, which is more around data modeling. Can you recommend 5 models that can be used to classify apples based on their features? So remember, the features are these input information. These are the features of the apples, and I want to kind of use it maybe in the future to determine the quality, right? So maybe someone gives me an apple. This is the size, this is the sweetness, this is the crunchiness. Gives me all those kind of pieces of input data, and I want to try and figure out, is this going to be a good apple or a bad apple, right? So for that, I'll need kind of some sort of mathematical model, some sort of equation, so to speak, in which I can plug in those numbers and get the output. So that's what a model is. So let's see what it says. And so for those of you who have done any machine learning, who've done any regression analysis, you'll start seeing these start making sense to you. Logistic regression is a very traditional regression technique for binary, for a good versus bad analysis. Then you have decision trees and random forests. Random forests, more of an ensemble model. GBMs, support vector machines. These are very kind of well-established machine learning models. So it's saying here are some models that you could use for this data set. And since quality is a good or bad, it's a binary, a logistic regression would make sense to use. So let's just jump ahead and say, can you build a logistic regression model that be useful to classify apples based on their features? So let's go ahead and do that. So what is kind of the mathematical equation that I could use going forward when someone gives me a bunch of feature sets of these apples that I could plug it in, and the output of the equation tells me if it's good or bad, right? That's what I'm asking this to build a model, right? Give me an equation. And here it's giving me an error analyzing. Let's wait. Let's see if it's okay. To proceed, we should either impute. So there was an error. So I should have specified to have run it off the cleaned data set that had missing that where they had fixed the missing value problem. But thankfully, ChatGPT has recovered from that error without my input, right? So it's now going through, it's building out the regression model. So it has imputed the missing values and refit the regression. So by impute means it has kind of figured out what the best replacements are for those missing values. Typically, it'll take the median of all the other values and plug it in for the missing. So you can start seeing the model has an accuracy of 75.5%, has a 76% accuracy for precision for classifying bad versus good. So it gives you kind of all those outputs for the logistic regression model. So you'll see 75%, it's okay, but we can do better. We can build a better model. And a lot of times you'll start, if you do machine learning, you'll start realizing ensemble models, which are more sophisticated models, will be more powerful. So I'm asking it, can you build a random forest model that could be useful to classify apples? How does it compare to the logistic regression model? So I'm asking it to build another model, and you know, for my data analysis purposes, is this ensemble model, the random forest model, is it going to be a better model for predicting? Let's see. Significant improvement in classification of performance over the logistic regression model, right? So accuracy of almost 90%. And again, you know, the beauty about this is you can start prototyping all within ChatGPT, all within this, right? And then once you get the results, once you're happy with it, you can say something like, oh, my actual data set has 1 billion records in our corporate cloud computing data center. Can you give me the necessary parameters for this model that I can then replicate? I can take to the cloud, to my cloud environment and replicate it over there and then run it on this 1 billion record data set. So it's as simple as that. So my data set, over 1 billion records in a corporate cloud computing data center. Can you provide the necessary parameters of the model that were based on the training data set? So the training data set is this 4,000 record data set that I just uploaded, right? I'm building the model on this data set. So it's usually historical information. And I'm saying, give me all the parameters of this logistic regression model. It's just given me how good the model is. It hasn't told me what the model is. And I'm saying, tell me what the model is now, so I can now hand it over or take it to the cloud environment. And so look what it does. It just spits out all that information to me. So these are just, you would take something like this, you'd put in your Python code or whatever the language you're using, whatever the library, if you're using scikit-learn, if you're using you know, some of the more advanced modules that are out there, TensorFlow, you would use these parameters and just pass it into whatever library you're using, and then you can just run it in production. So it's giving me all the parameters of this of the random forest model that it found to be almost 90% accurate. I'm saying, hey, run with this, take it to your cloud center, and now you have something that's you can use for your data analysis in your production environment. Okay. So let me see where we are here. Again, just to reiterate, you know, these services right now, think of them as, you know, maybe 90% accuracy at 10% of the level of effort, right? So it really adds value, but is not guaranteed to be correct. Please double check everything. The responses could be incomplete. The responses could be incorrect, right? And based on the training data set that you're working with, if you're not, smart about that, and you're providing a training data set that has biases inherent, you're going to get bias output. If I'm looking for, say, housing prices across the US and my training data set is based on Manhattan, New York, not Kansas, then, you're going to see like 100 square foot house is worth $1 million in Oklahoma, which is just not true, right? So that's how biases can affect your data analysis. So be very careful. Okay, so custom GPTs, just real quick. These are kind of obviously, very specific use case driven GPTs. I'll be doing a lunch and learn about building custom GPTs later on. But if you go to ChatGPT and you click on Explore GPTs, this is where your custom GPTs are. And these are definitely for ChatGPT 4. So everything I'm showing here is GPT-4 specific. So if you look in here, you have all these custom GPTs. Some are, it's kind of like an app store. And a custom GPT is basically a very specialized ChatGPT, right? So really, to take advantage of ChatGPT, you have to kind of give it the context, you have to give it a role, you have to give it kind of a number of parameters, and then you start asking the questions, right? And for a custom GPT, you kind of store this in that custom GPT. So you don't always have to give it the same information over and over and over again, right? So if you're a sports fan looking at sports stats, and one day you're doing baseball stats, you kind of say, hey, this file is associated with baseball, and you kind of do all the analysis, but you've given the context about the files that you're uploading, right? Next day, you want to come and look at, say, basketball stats. You're going to have to give the context all over again. So instead, you build a custom GPT that you've maybe a baseball stat custom GPT, and you build a separate basketball stat custom GPT. And you can click here, and the moment you open up that session, it already knows that anything you're talking to it, anything you're uploading is all related to baseball or all related to basketball, right? So that's all a custom GPT is. That said, if you start searching for data analysis in custom GPT, or even data, you can play around and you can start seeing there's a lot of different GPTs that people are starting to build. It's early stages, but you might find some data, something that are relevant to your needs. So data analyst, you can see data analyst is a ChatGPT OpenAI custom GPT. And if I start the chat here, now I can just upload my file. I can go back to the Apple. I'll go to the non-broken one, and I think I had some prompts here. I can just say, you know what I'll do? I'm gonna just do this both in one here. Analyze the attached file and provide some interesting stats. So now we're within this custom GPT that's provided by OpenAI called Data Analyst, right? So it's more specific. It's all about data and analyzing data. So a lot of similar stuff as before, but I just want to kind of briefly touch upon custom GPTs and kind of their uses for data analysis. So already because I'm in the data analyst custom GPT here, and I'm asking for interesting stats, it's now going to already kind of give me a lot more information. I don't have to prompt it with every last detail, right? So it knows that I'm in kind of an analysis situation, so it knows what to do with analysis. So it's giving me descriptive stats and quality distribution, right? Good and bad quality apples. So that's a quick. So Excel, Real quick about Excel. Excel already had, let me see what this is here. Okay, we'll go. If I open up an Excel, I just open up that Apple quality CSV file in Excel. So I want to bring to people's attention Excel's analyze data over here on the home ribbon. If you just click, if you're in your Excel spreadsheet and you click analyze data, it has been part of Excel for a long time. It does a lot of, it already has AI embedded in it, even pre ChatGPT's release, where you can do natural language queries of this data. You can talk to the data in English, in Spanish, whatever your language is. But it also gives you insights in the form of either pivot tables, pre-built, or not pre-built, but dynamic pivot tables, pivot charts, or even regular Excel charts. So the three categories, you get pivot tables, pivot charts, and Excel charts. And it's things that it finds interesting in this data. So it has its own AI. Excel now also has two other kind of interfaces into generative AI. One is Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365, which I'll have a session on later on. The other is through add-ins. And if you go into add-ins, you'll see some Gen AI add-ins, third-party Gen AI add-ins, such as GPT for Excel Word. So when you click in here and you add the add-in, it will show up in your ribbon here. So if I look at the GPT for Excel Word that I've added, you can see I can now start doing things. I can start accessing more functions. I can start accessing GPT related kind of formulas from the web. So it'll go out from the web and I can start, getting information and maybe filling out on a cell by cell. I can put equals GPT, and you can start seeing like the Excel formulas that you're familiar with if you use Excel now have these GPT formulas. So another very powerful way of kind of extending Excel for your data analysis purposes using the Gen AI add-ins to Excel. And I'll talk about Copilot some other time. So this is another, so these are two different ways of using AI within Excel. One is analyze data, which already has been part of Excel for a long time. And the other is kind of these add-ins. And like I said, Lunch and Learn for Copilot will be coming soon. So that's about all. I just want to talk about the micro sessions that are coming up in about 3 weeks. We have 3 micro sessions scheduled. They're about 2 hours long. 2 things. One, I will go about now doing data analysis across multiple worksheets. So maybe I have an Excel file with multiple worksheets or across multiple workbooks or multiple files. Today I showed you an example with one file, but if you want to see stuff across multiple files, I'll be covering that in the micro session. And like I mentioned before, if you have any sort of requests that you want addressed ahead of time, by all means, feel free to email them in. And with that, here is the link to the micro session. And with that, that is all I have planned for today. Does anyone have any questions?
Hey, Drew, while we're waiting for questions, I'm going to share my screen.
Sure.
And then you'll have to stop yours once.
I stopped. Your screen shared.
Fantastic. It looks like I think everyone can see.
Yeah, I can.
Just waiting for. There are any questions? Okay, well, so Dhruv, thank you very much for not only an engaging presentation, but super important application of AI to data analysis. And I just want to thank everyone here for joining us again. We really appreciate the time that you give us here. As usual, here's a sequence of some of the upcoming Lunch and Learns. And one of the things I wanted to say is we have a recording on data analysis using ChatGPT that's separate from what Dhruv just showed today. We'll go ahead today and we'll post that in the C4A Slack community. And finally, this is pretty much what Dhruv had already mentioned. Here's the micro session to the course that Dhruv will be teaching very shortly. I don't know the exact dates off the top of my head, but good enough. But we do have, for all of those who participated today, we will be giving a discount code to join any of the courses that we have upcoming. Not only do we have the data analysis, but we also have some, beginning courses on what is generative AI and using some of the AI assistants. So again, thank you everyone for attending today.
There was a question, Tom, about data in Excel. Very, very relevant question, Diane.
Right.
So if I can just answer that.
Please do. Absolutely.
So Diane, that's a great question. Obviously the add-ins you have to be careful about, and definitely look at the underlying privacy policy for the companies that you're adding the stuff in. So the cells that you refer to and that you send out, that information can, in theory, be used or be collected, right? So you need to make sure that the company whose add-in that you're using, how they specify how they're using that information. The other stuff, other parts of the sheet or other parts of your workbook that is not going out over the internet, that's still private. So hopefully, it's not like your whole workbook is going, but inputs into the Gen AI, ChatGPT formulas that have been plugged in, those are definitely going out. Oh, Tim, no. So that's that's a standard issue with ChatGPT, right? Your interactions with ChatGPT and the data that you upload, they're all there. So you have to look at the ChatGPT privacy policies. You can request for deleting stuff. So again, be cautious. I tell everyone, be on the side of being cautious. If you start using ChatGPT Enterprise and things like that, you have more control. But if you're just using it for your own work, be very careful about the data you're uploading. So, Brian, I'm not sure about the free version. Definitely the custom GPTs, I think you can't do. I'm not sure about the free version. I've been embedded in ChatGPT 4. Can I use analyze data? So you're talking about analyze data from within Excel? Pam? Yeah, you can use analyze data. Excel can actually handle. People think Excel can only handle 1 million or so records. Excel can handle billions, and you have to know about Power Query and Power Pivot. But Excel now has the capability of kind of being, you can use it in memory, but analyze data is essentially, what it does is it will look at that table and it will kind of look through pivot tables and pivot charts that might be of interest, and it will show those back to you that you can then bring into Excel. We do a lot of advanced Excel stuff, but hopefully that addressed your question. If you want to continue that conversation, feel free to ping me. I can talk to you more about Excel.
All right. In the interest of time and respecting everyone else's time, again, thank you, Dhruv, and thanks to everyone who joined us this afternoon. Hopefully, we see you next week around this time when Dhruv continues this focuses more on data visualization.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day. Thanks, Dhruv.
Thanks, Tom.